Well, I guess you have to first of all understand Moncton. Moncton was a railroad town. Our biggest employer was the CN Shops. A couple of other big employers were was the Canadian Forces Base and the Eaton's Catalog Center. And you know, I remember going to high school, and my friends all wanted to go work at the CN Shops because, you know, if you got a job there, you had it made. And so I went away to school, came back to Moncton in the mid-1980s, and the CN Shops were closing. Our biggest employer, the biggest employer, was closing. There were yellow ribbons all around town. SOS, Save Our Shops. The CFB Moncton packed up and left town. The shops packed up and left town. The Eaton Catalog Center, the catalog center for Eaton's for all of Canada, packed up and left town. And so it was quite a scene, I can tell you. And it was a period of great uncertainty, but I have to say that in the end, what it did was make Moncton more determined, you know, to roll up our sleeves and pull this community around. And so when I see the heading that we had here, can this city be saved? I think the answer is very clearly yes.
Okay, so big challenges. Let's talk specifically about what the community did to start grappling with those challenges. And of course, it's government, but it's also business, institutions, citizens.
You know, it's, I'm going to come back to a quote that we talked about before, and it's a quote from John Kennedy, where he talked about putting a man on the moon and bringing him safely back, but what he said after that was most interesting. He said, we do this not because it's easy, but because it's hard. And so here we were faced with our biggest employers gone, and so the community pulled together. This was really a grassroots movement that was very collaborative with all levels of government, the municipal government, provincial and federal. And we pulled together and rolled up our sleeves and said, what are we going to do here? And put together a series of economic conferences and meetings to plan the economic future for Moncton. What are the things we can build upon? What are our strengths? What are the things that we don't have that we can do? And out of that came a very distinct plan to move the economy ahead. And we also created a regional economic development corporation. And I say regional because in Moncton, it's 3 municipalities, Moncton, Riverview, and Dieppe, but it's one community. And so we formed the first regional economic development agency in New Brunswick, was in Moncton. And from that, we developed our plan. We built on some of the strengths that we had, which would be transportation, healthcare, and many others. And but we also took a look at the information highway. And with the provincial government, we began to build a network. We became a call center city. A lot of the call centers wanted to come to Moncton because we had the IT infrastructure. And then we built from that. And what we did was we built the most diversified economy in Canada, one of the strongest economies in the entire country. Our economy, we have, there's no more than 11% of the jobs in any one sector. In Moncton, I'll talk about Greater Moncton, since 1990, over 46% of all new jobs in the province have been created in Moncton since 1990. We have 16% of the provincial population. It's very diversified, very strong. And so to come back to Kennedy's quote, you know, we did this not because it was easy, but because it was hard, and we had to. Former Premier Frank McKenna has a great line from Moncton. He says that Moncton is the Timex city. Takes a licking and keeps on taking.
And that slogan really applies pretty much to every intelligent community that we've seen. You've got some crazy people in Moncton. Entrepreneurial culture, we were talking about it before, and in Fredericton too. I just met some of those love sitting down with entrepreneurs because they're just a little on the other side of what the rest of us would consider normal. Back in Fredericton, there was a guy who built a business from 2 to 100 in about 3 years, and he was more things than I can count for a company of his size. And in Moncton, sort of your poster child are the property guys who are basically just setting out to destroy the residential real estate industry as we know it.
Setting out to change it, to improve it.
To improve it, well, of course, creative destruction. Why not? So it's a lot of fun. You mentioned the fact that there's actually 3 municipalities there. Now, at some point in the history of this city, they managed to take 5 cities and turn them into boroughs of one big city, and it was a bloodbath. And I'm just curious as to how you were able to forge this cooperation across those municipal boundaries with people who don't report to each other, and we're all, leaders who are all equal.
Well, you know, it's not that hard if you have a willingness to do it, and you have that kind of attitude. Here we have Moncton and Riverview and Dieppe, and as I said, 3 cities but 1 community. And for instance, the Greater Moncton International Airport is in Dieppe. The Moncton Golf and Country Club is in Riverview. And I want to come back to the airport in a minute. I have a story of you and I that I'd like to share. But you know, we have an attitude where we work together. We compete, but we really work together. And as evidence of that, I certainly want to highlight that Mayor Jean LeBlanc from the city of Dieppe is here today with his team. They've been with us all along. And Jean and the city of Dieppe worked very closely with us and worked with us on our bid for this, and entertained and educated you as well, as did the mayor of Riverview. So we really worked together, and we developed a number of agencies where we share services and we share responsibilities, and you know, it's all for the greater good.
I'm just curious, during your downturn period, was a lot of that driven by let's share some services and cut some costs and do better through this? I think it can be a powerful means to start collaborating.
Look, it very definitely was. It certainly had to do with saving costs, but you know what? It was also about not just survival, but prospering. You know, we're all in this boat. We all better row together or we're not going to get there. And we did.
And of course it helps that you all have the same last name, so...
Mayor LeBlanc, and the other mayor, we're trying to get him to change his name. I do want to come back to the Moncton Airport though and share a little story with our friends here, because you remember we went there, and they have the Moncton Flight College, which is in Dieppe. We went there and they set us up in this very high-tech simulation, flight simulation. And so they put Robert and I in the plane. Robert got to be the pilot. And what happened, Robert?
Well, I made myself a little ill because, you know, this is simulating a plane about the size of a Volkswagen. If you cut out all the, you know, sort of the roundness of a Volkswagen, that's the size of the aircraft. And we buzzed, I'm not quite sure where you're going with this, right? We buzzed the tower,
City Hall,
which we're not allowed to do. Yeah. But I'm not helping you.
Well, it's kind of like, you know, you've heard of a computer crashing? We crashed.
Oh, that. Well,
it was just a minor crash. It wasn't much.
Yeah. I kept saying, so when am I down? I said, you're down. So, yeah, you're down. I'm down? Yeah, you're down. You're down.
You're definitely down.
One of the interesting things about visiting 2 intelligent communities in one fairly small area is that they're both served by the same telephone company, in this case NBTel. Mm-hmm. Okay. And in Fredericton, NBTel was considered an obstacle, and in your community, NBTel was considered an ally in your launch into the call center business. And I remember I had the opportunity to ask some people at NBTel why, and they just sort of said, you know, gave me the look to say, well, we don't know, but even if we did know, we're not going to tell you. But I'm just curious, you got great cooperation early on from your local carrier. Can you talk about how that helped you get started?
You know, it's all about collaboration. That's what we're all about in Moncton. That's why we have 3 communities that can prosper together as 3 separate municipalities. And we have the same approach with our business partners. And in fact, when we were preparing for our ICF bid, we had a meeting at City Hall with all of our business partners, and we just literally filled the room, and they said, you know, this is so great. We can't do this in a lot of communities, but we love that about Moncton. And so we realized that by collaborating, by working together, that's how you get ahead. And NBTel, which is now Bell Alliant, they were very instrumental in developing the basic IT infrastructure that we needed, which moved us towards call centers. And you know, some people kind of sneezed at call centers, but I can tell you, we have a very healthy industry in Moncton, but it has led to bigger and better things. So it's formed the foundation that we have built on. And we have great partners, and it's not just Alliant. We also have many smaller partners. You know, we have a very entrepreneurial city, and our small businesses and our local business people, we collaborate with them all the time, and we've built our economy with both big and small businesses.
Now, in spite of all that good cooperation, the community has also stepped forward and built its own fiber and wireless networks.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just curious, what is it that you're doing to reduce government costs, improve services, and so forth?
Well, that was an initiative of our IT department at City Hall, and I really have to give them credit. They didn't wait around for somebody to build this. They went ahead and built this mesh network, which I believe is the first in Canada. But we have also used information technology to help reduce costs and make things better. And one story that jumps to mind to me was just in the newspaper not very long ago, where this lady was at home and going about her morning affairs, and she got a knock on the door, and here's this fellow from the city of Moncton, and he says, "May I come in? You have a water leak." And she said, "What do you mean I have a water leak?" Well, it turns out that we monitor our water usage electronically, and he could tell that her water use at City Hall, they could see that the water use was spiking. So he knew that either they had the hose running all day long, but it was in the winter, so it wasn't that. So he felt that they probably had a leak. So he asked if he could come in. He looked around. Sure enough, he found a leak. He said, there's your problem. You've got a leak. Fixed up. So those are the kinds of things we do. We have Wi-Fi on our buses, and we've connected we also on our public transit system now, we can tell wherever the bus is online. You can go online and see where the bus is. And as has been mentioned, sometimes in New Brunswick we get a little snow. In fact, we get a lot of snow. And so if, we have hard winters, we don't fight it, we embrace it. But if you don't have to be standing out in a snowstorm all day long waiting for the bus, if you can tell when it's almost to your house and then go out, well, that saves you time and money. Our building inspection department, they go around and inspect houses and see how buildings are coming along and so on. They can do their work from the site because they're all electronically connected, so they don't have to run back to City Hall and fill out paperwork. They do that on site. So it's the old story of doing your work where your work takes you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, I was just thinking about that water leak story is actually became famous because one of the first people they visited, I was told, turned out to be a reporter who said, "How come you know that I'm wasting water? What's going on here?" And was so interested that it became good, big news. Mm. Okay, so you mentioned that you now have a very diversified economy, no more than 11% in any sector. So just tell us a bit, what are some of those sectors now in what used to be a railroad town?
Well,
the big ones.
I do want to. I did.
Yeah, it was a detailed question.
These are my crib notes because I want to mention that our economy really is based on big players and small and medium businesses. Very, very diversified. And we have a large number of them here today who have come here to support us. And so I'm just going to take a very short moment to mention them. Of course, we have the City of Dieppe. And we also have Atlantic Lottery Corporation is here. Cap Acadie, which is a very high-tech communications newspaper type of a company. Enterprise Greater Moncton is here. National Research Council, Red Ball Internet, one of our leading edge small internet companies. The education sector is well represented here. Atlantic Baptist University, Mackenzie College, Mount A University, as well as Université de Moncton. And also Landell and Scotiabank arrived here today. So these are some of our key businesses, but we have many, many others. We have big ones like Bell Alliant, Royal Bank, Blue Cross, G-Tech, which is a huge business that grew from a very small company initiated in Moncton. Oracle, Medivie, Blue Cross, Rogers, Assumption V. Those are some of our big players. But I have to say that what we're very fortunate about in Moncton is that we have such a vibrant small business class. And I want to come back to when CN left town. This is where the local people, the local business people rolled up their sleeves, they hunkered down, they stayed with us, and they pulled together. And we have a very broad small and medium entrepreneurial class in Moncton that is very vibrant, and you put it all together and it's what gets us where we are today.
It's interesting what you're saying in contrast to the discussion that happened just before us about this issue of, I can't remember which one of the speakers said that you have to keep in mind that when you're dealing with small business, you're really not talking about very many jobs in the early stages. And as I was listening to when I was thinking about something that we believe very passionately at the forum, and that is, yeah, that's true, but remember the Fortune 1000, they've been shrinking in employment for 30 years. Well, guess what? You can bring them in, but they're not going to grow.
Yeah.
So the only way ultimately you can really grow your local economy is the way you are doing it. It's a job at a time, it's a business at a time.
Yeah.
But once they're there, they tend to stay.
Well, I could give you an example of John Manship in Moncton, who started out Spilo, a very small business, video lottery terminals. It's built into a huge business with cooperation with Atlantic Lottery, and it was recently bought out by G-Tech, a world leader in this kind of business, and there are hundreds and possibly more than 1,000 jobs created just from that one small business that started up.
Well, it's rare, but it's precious.
Yeah.
Okay, so here we are. You've worked real hard at this problem, and now it's 2009, and there's a recession circling the globe like a hungry shark. And I guess my question is, how is the economy of Moncton standing up so far?
Look, we're thriving. We're really thriving. Greater Moncton has built so many new jobs. When you look at the national media, I mean, look, we're having tough economic times in Canada as well. Over the last 6 to 8 months, there have been huge job losses across the country. We've had job increases. Our unemployment rate is one of the smallest in the country. Our employment rate is the highest, to turn it around that way. Our housing market is stable. We've been found to be a safe haven for real estate. You know, things are going very, very well. One of the, you know, knock on wood, I have to say, we seem to be outperforming most of the rest of the country, frankly. And one of the best comments I heard was, hopefully the recession will be over before it gets here.
Well, we're just about out of time, but I did want to, there's one thing I didn't want to miss, which is that Moncton is an extremely bilingual community, both French and English. You saw it in the video, as is New Brunswick, but Moncton is kind of at the heart of it and has made it an important part of who they are. You're the home to something called the University of Moncton, a French language university. Mm-hmm. What is the role of that university and of its the language and culture of the French-speaking people in sort of bringing Moncton forward?
C'est vraiment clé, un clé de succès. Je suis très fier que la ville de Moncton est premièrement la ville officiellement bilingue du Canada. Moncton is the first official bilingual city in the entire country of Canada. And we're blessed to have both strong English language universities and University of Moncton, which is certainly a center of excellence in French education, the largest university, the French language university in Canada outside of Quebec. And the French culture and language and bilingualism for Canada has been absolutely essential to our success, both economically, both for prosperity and for quality of life. It's had a very, very significant impact. And you know, when you were there, you were there during the Fry Festival, the only official bilingual literary festival in all of Canada. We have the Centre Culturel L'Escouette, I'm sorry, Aberdeen, the L'Escouette Théâtre. It makes such an impact and it contributes so much to the vibrancy of our community. It's absolutely wonderful. So I guess I would say when you put it all together, we focus very much on quality of life and prosperity. And here we have a bilingual, prosperous community with a very great quality of life. And to quote one of the commercials that you'll see on TV from time to time, that makes Moncton very, very special. What's the value of that? It's infinite. Priceless. That's Moncton.
Well, George, thank you very much for a very interesting half hour.
Yeah.
And
my pleasure. Thank you very much.